contacting the insurance company, they told me that they don't do vacant property insurance.
Yeah. So did you pay it? Did you pay it or no?
I haven't paid it because I haven't got a company yet to insure it. The insurance doesn't expire with the old insurance company. Well, the current one I'm using until about the 17th of February. But one person just checked on the insurance. Excuse me, one second. We got one sneeze, but
Okay. So the question is, you're asking me more.
hold on. Thank you. I was sneezing there. Um, um, I checked with my personal insurance here in Pittsburgh, and also I checked with, and they don't insure. That was Travelers. There's an insurance agent in my church that I have communications with, and he recommended, or he gave me a name of a man and company down there in that area who does insurance for that area.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Hold
told
on one
him,
second. Finishing up a call.
it was a man that was going to do renovations inside, not renovations, but painting and that sort of thing, and maybe the outside. He wanted me to give him that information as soon as the fellow got that price ready for me.
So what is your question? I'm trying to figure out what's your question.
My question is, if that place needs some work before you will let me know what needs to be done in there,
Mm-hmm.
so that can start moving along, either getting it renovated to a certain extent up to where either it can sell or a tenant can move in there. I really want it sold. I don't want tenants, to be bothered with that anymore. But I would like to know your opinion of that. And
My opinion on the insurance part or the condition of the property.
the condition of the property, and do you know anything about insurance and what, or agents that would know something about insurance companies who would insure the property?
Yeah, I can get some information to you. So yeah, I can get some.
That's great, because one gave me a figure of $8,000 a year. I said, oh no.
Wait, is that the property tax? Are you talking about the property tax?
No, insurance.
Right. Oh, okay. Yeah.
$1,000, it was going to be $8,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
And that only is for fire insurance. It's not for when people are living in there. If I were living there, they were buying tenants on the lease.
Okay.
Do look at the lease.
Okay. So let me do this. Let me get that. Let me get the information. I do know some people who deal with that. I can call them and then get back to you on that. That way, you know what I'm saying, I can let you know. I can let you know because I can't tell you right now if, as far as with the pricing or anything, but I can actually get back in contact with you about that.
Do you want Damon to do a walkthrough? Yeah, he can do a walkthrough and see, now there's a black man, a friend of mine, who has some real estate in D.C., who gave me a name of a contractor. And the contractor, I believe, is black. But he promised me what it will cost to get it, payment, plaster, whatever it needs, and pick stuff inside and on the outside. The folks have got me that 2 days ago, and I haven't heard from him. I called him, not last night, but night before. And he hasn't returned my call.
So let's do this.
I don't get it.
Right. So let's do this. So let's do this. Okay. What I can do is get back to you on that because I have to go into my podcast right now that starts at 12 o'clock. I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut you all short. So
Okay, that's good. That's chapter 12.
right. So I'm gonna go ahead and.
You can call me back and let me know when you'll be available
Mm-hmm.
to do the walkthrough so
Okay.
we can have a good idea of what you need to do. And then maybe you have some, some contractors that you can compare some prices,
Mm-hmm.
But I want to hear what your suggestions are after your walkthrough and not just what somebody else is saying.
Okay. All right. I'll do that.
First thing, should they just add money to give to people like me that sell the property? But I'm sure they put a lien against the property. One said a year if they will give this money, and after the property is sold, then I have to pay it back within that year.
Okay. Well, we can talk more about that later on. Let me get to my podcast and I'll call you back, Monica. Okay. All right. Thank you. Mhm. I am so sorry, everyone. Welcome. Today is Friday, February the 3rd, 2023. Welcome to another episode of Real Estate, Real Talk, Real Life, and Real Live with Damon the Agent. Hey, Sharviva. I'm sorry. How are you? I was finishing up a call. I had let them know prior to 12 that I need to get off, but at the same time, wanted to come on here and talk to you all about some market updates going back to the housing market of 2022. Today, we're going to do some market updates, and I'm also going to talk about appraisals and appraisers because that question was recently brought up to me. So I just want to make sure people have clarity on who they are and what do they do. So I got some information for you all that I want to share. And I just want to let you all know this is for the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area. Okay, this is not for anything else. So there's some statistics also, and I wanted to educate you all because people were trying to say that because of the way the economy is going right now, that we're similar to 2008 and that the market is leaning towards crashing. And I just wanted to give you all some updated information on that. And this is a look ahead for 2023. Oh, I didn't do my Instagram. I got to go back on here. So, hey, Instagram, I thought I was live, but I realized that I wasn't. So, currently, I'm about to do my market updates. Welcome to another episode of Real Estate, Real Talk, Real Live with Damon, the Agent. So, again, like I was saying, there were people who were talking about the economy potentially crashing due to the recession. So I want to give some updates comparable to 2023 and how 2008 and 2023, how they're totally different. In 2008, you all, we had fast rising inventory. In 2023, we had low inventory. In 2008, there were lots of new construction. In 2023, there's very little new construction, even though there's a lot of construction in certain areas, depending on where you are located at. Also in 2008, there was a rampant subprime lending. That's for those, if you'll remember, there was a lot of interest only, no doc loans, all of those things. People just was getting their homes, will basically say that it's called stated loan. And that was when you stated that you could have said, I earned 500,000. All they did was verify your credit. They didn't verify your income. You got approved for a home loan. And then what happened later on, people were house poor, houses were going into foreclosures, and boom. Nowadays, there are virtually no subprime lending. Back then, there were floods of foreclosures and short sales. And this I know because I did a lot of short sales back then. That was my primary, what I primarily did was short sales. And I explained what a short sale was. But to those who don't know, a short sale is when a seller is selling their home for actually less than the house is for actually less than they're selling their home for less than what they owe on the property. So let's say hypothetically they owed 500,000, but the market saying that their house is only worth 300,000, they can't sell it for 500,000. They have to sell it on based on the market. So because they're selling their house for less than what they owe on it, the mortgage company has to approve that final sale. And there's a lot of, going through the mortgage company to approve the final sale. Now the foreclosure rate is relatively low. There are people who approached me recently about getting a foreclosed property, and what I explained to them that nowadays you could have a home that was once 800,000 that has foreclosed. Now the house may sell for 600,000, and that's a foreclosed property, but it's not affordable. And when I say affordable, meaning relatively cheap, like they once was. Foreclosures at one point in time were relatively cheap, but what you have to understand is it's a law called supply and demand. When the supply is low and the demand is high, prices go up. Same thing in houses. Foreclosure had become real popular amongst a lot of investors, a lot of first-time homeowners and stuff. So over the years, there are no relatively cheap foreclosures, especially in the Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia area. In 2008, there was a rising unemployment due to the recession. Currently, and I only can speak currently because no one can predict the future, there's a strong labor market that's going on right now. There have been a lot of people who laid off jobs, such as Amazon and all of these big companies. But if you go back to many, many years, a lot of these companies were not around. So therefore, but the job market is still strong. And then in 2008, prices were up over 50% in 1 year. And that because if you'll remember from 2001 coming up to 2007, it was just like boom, 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 boom. Houses were going up, up, up. And right now, prices are up 10 to 15% in 1 year. And that's because ever since the pandemic, prices have skyrocketed because of supply and demand again, because demand had went up because of we had to be isolated inside. People wanted bigger and more space because some people, unfortunately, did not like their spouse. So because they didn't like their spouse, they tend to wanted to be on another side of the house because they had to stay in. So a lot of people started to, look elsewhere and they wanted to get another home. If they were in an apartment, they wanted to get home. So the demand skyrocketed during that time. So I wanted to educate you all on that. Now, I want to also let you all know that the medium sales price in the region, because this is not specific to just DC or just Maryland, this is in the region. The medium sales price in the fourth quarter of 2021 was $350. The medium sales price of the fourth quarter in 2022 was $360. The difference in these 2 years is the interest rate. The interest rate at the end of 2021 was 3.07%. The interest rate at the end of 2022 was 6.66%, which had doubled. Therefore, the monthly payment for 2021 on a $350,000 house with a 3.07% interest rate was $1,414. The qualifying income was $60,000. Now, that is much cheaper than a lot of people's rent. I mean, I believe I did speak on the rent versus buying, but I'm going to elaborate on that again on one of the future shows. But if you look at that, if you bought a home in 2021 for $350,000 and you got an interest rate of 3.07%, your monthly payment was only $1,414, which was $1,414. Now, at the end of 22, because the interest rate had gone up on a $360 home, the interest rate was 6.66. Like I said, the interest rate had doubled compared to the year prior to, and the monthly payment then was $2,184, which was a $700 increase. Qualifying income had to be $93,600. Now, there's been some difference in those 2 years. The interest rate was 1, the qualifying income was 2 on a $360,000 home. Now, what people should take into consideration when it pertains to a house is that in most cases, your mortgage is going to be cheaper than rent. No matter which way you put it, your mortgage is going to be cheaper than your rent. Here's another thing that you also take into consideration when it pertains to renting versus buying. When you rent, you have to pay your rent by the fourth or fifth of each month. If you pay after it, it's considered late. They hit you with late fees. They want to take you to court because they want you out of there within 30 days. When you buy, you have up until the 15th of the month to pay your mortgage, even though they tell you to always pay it on the first of the month. They tell you that. But let's just be realistic. Some things, life happens to everyone. You may not be able to pay on the first, but you have until the 15th of the month when you own a home, compared to you having the 5th of the month when you rent a home. Those 10 days can make a huge difference with not being charged with late fees. And then here's the thing, if you pay when you own a home. 240-425-0625. Okay, I thought I turned that off. I'm sorry. If you pay late on your mortgage and everything, they're not going to report it right away. And then on top of that, they don't try to get you out of your house right away. Like if you rent and you don't pay by the 5th, by the end of that month, you will definitely go to court, and then they're going to try to get you out. If you don't pay your mortgage by the end of the month, they're not coming after you right away. They're not. So there are many benefits to being a homeowner. But let me go back to these numbers, okay? Because I want to explain some things to you, as far as what buyers and sellers should do in 2023, okay? So for buyers, mortgage rates will likely remain between 6%, 6.5% for much of 2023. Let's just be realistic about these things, okay? Because some people, I spoke to someone recently and they said they're waiting for the interest rate to go back down. Please keep in mind that when the interest rate was low, that was historically low, meaning that comes around once in a lifetime. If you look at the history of interest rate, there had never been that low before. So like I explained to the person, if you wait for it to go down, which we never know when it's going to go down or if it's going to go down, but if you wait, let's say it goes down 5 years from now, the price of the house today is going to go up significantly in 5 years. So you think you're saving on the interest rate, but you're losing on the price of the home. And what I explained to that person was you have to factor in numerous things when it pertains to buying a home. Just don't focus on the interest rate, because when you get a credit card, you're not focused on the interest rate. You're looking actually at your maximum buying potential when you get a credit card. When they give you a credit card, and if it's $10,000, many people ain't thinking about the interest rate. They're thinking about their spending power. And when you're buying a home, the interest rate is not the only thing that you should focus on. You should focus on the cost of the home and your monthly mortgage payment. Those are the most important things. The interest rate, you can always refinance. But if that price of that home keeps going on, depending on which market we are in, that determines whether or not that price becomes negotiable or not. Let's go back to when the interest rate was extremely low. Do you all remember out there, many people were competing, having bidding wars with other people, and then they had to go above list price in order to get the home? They had to spend more money to get the home. And that's what's going to end up happening in many cases. But right now is the perfect time to buy because of the fact that you don't have much competition right now, because there are other people thinking just like you, because everyone keeps listening to the media, and the media is telling them, oh, now is not a good time to buy. So everybody's sitting on their couch, they're in their apartment or wherever they are, paying rent, got to pay by the 5th. The price of the home still steadily going up. They might have dropped in some particular areas because real estate is always local. Remember that. It's always location, location, location. So depending on which area you in is going to determine the price of the home. But at the same time, you're going to have a higher cost when it pertains to your monthly mortgage payment because of the cost of the home. Buyers should be sure to shop around for a loan, since there will be continue to be a lot of variable in rates and terms across lenders. So let me elaborate on that. All lenders are not the same. Depending on what lender you use is going to determine, as for a buyer, whether or not that you get a good deal. Like, for example, there are some people who qualify for some programs. Now, understand programs are always contingent upon location and always contingent upon what your income is, because everyone does not qualify for programs. Let me give you another example. I had a client one time. This was years ago. She was a single woman. She had no kids. She made $97,000 a year. She was looking for a program. She did not qualify. She was extremely upset. I told her that the reason why she didn't qualify for the program is because they assume that if you make $97,000 a year, that you have some money saved up. And on top of that, the programs were designed for those people who are less fortunate, who do not have down payment and closing costs, and they are to assist those people. Sometimes you may have a single mother who have 3 kids, and they need help. But a single individual may need help also, but unfortunately, everyone doesn't qualify. You have to apply, and everyone does not qualify. But all lenders are not created the same. But please keep that in mind. A lot of times, a realtor such as myself can connect you with a great lender. You can speak with them, and I will always suggest you to always hold a conversation with the lenders. Always ask questions. Don't just accept everything that's just said to you. Okay. Me as a realtor, I ask plenty of questions to lenders when I deal with them. I ask questions all the time because I want to make sure that my buyers are completely understand what it is, loan products they qualify for, what they're actually getting. In 2023, buyers will have more leverage, both in terms of price and concession. However, inventory will remain relatively low, and prospective buyers will still need to be prepared to act when they find a home that they want to make an offer on. So let me elaborate on that. Basically, because of the way the market is and the interest rate, and people are sitting on the fence, that means houses out there are sitting longer on the market. And because houses are sitting longer on the market, that basically means that for buyers, prices become negotiable compared to when everyone was doing a bidding war. So now some of these prices you can actually negotiate, and concessions means closing costs. You can ask for closing costs in some situations, but again, that's always going to be relative to the house, the location, how long the house has been on the market, and how you negotiate the deal. Because please do not think if a house came on the market today that you can go offer them $20,000 less, and you can turn around also ask them for $20,000 in closing costs. So that's a $40,000 difference with the seller earning. You have to be realistic as far as negotiations is concerned, because many people go on to HGTV, and they feel as though because they watch HGTV, they feel as though because they've gone on Zillow or they've gone on Redfin that they know exactly what they're talking about, or they feel as though because their cousin was once a realtor, that their cousin said that what they can and cannot do. But here's the thing. I always tell people, if your cousin was so educated, why are they no longer selling real estate? For one, because number two is the market changes every 3 to 6 months. And I'm going to explain something about an appraisal about 6 months, but the market changes every 3 to 6 months. And because it changes, sometimes information becomes outdated that someone who used to be in the business knew that do not know for a person who's currently in the business. We have to take continuing education every 2 years to make sure that we're up to date on everything. So we try to provide you all with the most updated information. So please keep that in mind, that things become negotiable when it pertains to the houses who've been sitting on the market. But please be well educated of what you are doing. Do not just go out there and just think that, oh, houses sitting, so I just want to do this and I want to get this, because no one is giving away anything for free. Also, affordability will still be a challenge in 2023, particularly in moderate income and first-time buyers. However, these buyers should find less competition from investors and cash buyers, which will be a welcome change from the past few years. Okay, so I hope you all understood that, what I was saying. So for buyers, basically, it's a great time to buy. It's a great time to take advantage of the fact that houses are sitting out there, because that means that's less competition for you. Also, you can get the sellers, in many cases, not just with the concessions of the closing costs, you can get the sellers to help you buy down interest rate. Now, so their interest rate currently, I believe, is at 5.95, because it did go down slightly. So let's say you need to get it down another point. A realtor like myself can negotiate the contract to help you lower the interest rate. So now it'll be down a little bit less, but that's all part of negotiation and everything. So when you have a will, there's a way. I have a will, and a way. But at the same time, you have to make the offer, you know what I'm saying, attractive to the seller, and not just out there just asking for everything in the kitchen sink and think you're going to get it, because you're not. Now, for sellers who have been waiting on the sidelines should expect an upkick in buyer traffic in the first and second quarter of 2023. Pricing will be very important. And I say this because you have to be well educated. When I was just on the phone, when I was just hanging up, that was someone who was calling me because their house was on the market in DC. And they reached out to me because they sent me the property when it was on the market. And what I explained to them is that their house was priced too high. I said the realtor in that particular case priced it too high. So I said that's why I didn't sell. And you know what I'm saying? So they were happy that I was honest with them. Now, pricing is very important. You cannot assume that we're in the market that we was in 2 and 3 years ago when there was multiple offers on everything. Sellers have to be realistic as far as pricing your house, because if you don't price it right, it will sit on the market. And don't get me wrong, there are some sellers sometimes who feel as though that their house is worth a certain amount because it was appraised a year ago or whatever the case may be, which appraisals only last 6 months. Please keep that in mind. 6 months. So right now, 6 months ago was what? August or October. And it just seemed like that was yesterday. So that means if you got an appraisal no, 6 months ago was August. Yeah, August. So if you got an appraisal in the 4th of July, your appraisal is outdated right now. So please keep that in mind. But pricing is very important for sellers, and they need to understand that, because trying to overprice things and think you're going to get a bidding war, a lot of times it's going to have your house just sitting. And yes, it's going to get a lot of views depending on where it is and how it looks. But if you want a buyer to really be reasonable and give you an offer, you have to be realistic as far as things are concerned out here when it pertains to buying a house. I'm sorry, when it pertains to selling your house. Sellers who price their home appropriately, reflecting current market conditions, should find a ready, willing, and able buyer. No problem. But sellers who overprice their home because they feel as though that, oh, my house is better than the neighbor, but yet the neighbor house had more square footage, the neighbor house was more updated, but they feel like because they put new light fixtures in their home, like the ones in the picture behind me, and you all can't see it on Instagram, but they can see it on this one. Then sometimes the buyers are going to take longer to come. And sellers should be prepared for buyers to negotiate and ask for help with closing costs and with buying down the interest rate in some cases. It depends, depends on your realtor, depends on the contract, it depends on everything, it depends on presentation, how it's presented. So sellers, please keep that in mind, because understand that is the difference whether or not your house sells or not, when it does, or if it doesn't sell. So those were the latest market update. I'll be right back to talk about appraisers and appraisals. Welcome back, everyone. So I just gave you all the latest market update. So I wanted to elaborate on a few things, because I recently had someone to ask me some questions about an appraisal and appraisal. Okay. Now, an appraiser is a person who's hired to go give the true value of a property. They factor in the CMA, which is a comparable market analysis. They factor in the conditions of the property. They factor in square footages, and they factor in any upgrades or downgrades, meaning the condition of the property compared to everything else. They take variable things into consideration to come up with the true value of the property. These people are normally hired by the lender. Now, they're randomly picked. So most lenders these days cannot pick an appraiser to just go out there and give you a true value of a property and thinking like, oh, okay, well, the appraiser is going to say it's worth this much. They are randomly picked. Appraisers these days are randomly picked. Prior to 2008, There were lenders who worked with specific appraisers, and those appraisers at the time would end up buying houses. Hold on for 1 second, you all. I'm sorry. Hold on for 1 second. All right, I'm back, y'all. Sorry about that. Like I was saying about the appraisers, back in before 2008, there were certain lenders that work with certain appraisers, and what end up happening is those appraisers will go out there, they will overvalue properties to make sure that the house was actually worth whatever the contract was, because back then there was a lot of bidding wars going on as well. Nowadays, these appraisers are randomly picked. They don't work specifically with any lenders, and they go out there to give the true value of the home. And like I said, they factor in everything. Now, sometimes people assume that the CMA, which is the comparable market analysis, gives the true value of a home. That gives a true value up to a huge percentage, but the true value is always going to be done by the appraiser. And the appraiser has to go out there, because if a buyer makes an offer on a property, the lender wants to make sure that that particular property is worth whatever the contract says or more. So the appraisers go out there to give that. Now, the appraisal, which finally comes back, is what is a report of what is saying the house is worth, and it also has on the appraisal comparable properties, what the house was compared to come up with the value. Any notes might be put in the appraisal as well too. And what that means is, like, if it needs a new roof, if there are plumbing issues, if there's certain conditions, those things are notated in the appraisal, because that's the report of the value of the home. Now, depending on which loan product you use, the appraisals vary. For example, a FHA loan appraisal is very detailed, and in most cases, the FHA appraiser makes sure that in order for the buyer to move forward with that home, that the conditions, if any conditions of that home, has to be met and has to be addressed prior to going to settlement. With a conventional loan, which is totally different, they're just looking at the true value of the home. If there are any conditions in the home, let's say the roof and everything, if the house is still worth what the contract says or what was offered, then that's all they're checking off with a conventional loan. A FHA loan, they have stricter guidelines for the buyer. They're putting less down on the FHA loan. So the less money you put into anything, the less risk that you're acquiring. The more money you put, like with a conventional loan, then you're making sure the more money you're going to take care of things. So that's kind of the concept, even though they don't say it. This is just me speaking to you all about this, but that's kind of the concept of the whole thing. So when you're looking at the values of a house, understand that also with an appraisal, that the appraisal sits on a property for 6 months. Now, let me elaborate on that. I briefly mentioned it when I gave the market update, that, for example, if you got an appraisal on March 1st, 6 months later will be September 1st. On September 2nd, that appraisal is no longer any good. Now, it might still be close as far as what the value is, depending on how the market went those previous 6 months, but the market changes every 3 to 6 months. This is the reason why you cannot keep things the same. Like, I've spoken to people who say, oh, I got an appraisal on my home, and I'll ask, when did you get the appraisal? They say a year ago. And I will say, unfortunately, that appraisal is no longer good, because it's only on the house for 6 months. It is stamped on the house for 6 months. For example, if you have you make an offer on a property, and this is for sellers, for example, and some sellers, like I mentioned before, they feel like their house is worth more than a neighbor. Some sellers. So let's say hypothetically a seller has a house on the market for $500,000, and the appraisal comes back at $475,000, and the seller says, "Well, I want $500,000." And that particular buyer used a FHA loan and it came back at $475,000, and they don't want to accept the $475,000 from that FHA loan. That appraisal of $475,000 is stamped against that property for 6 months. So let's say now they put it back on the market and they get another buyer for $500,000, and they're using the FHA loan. Because that appraisal was already stamped on there for the $475,000, once the FHA lender submits their thing, they're going to see that the appraisal has been done. They can't change it. They can't offer them more than the $475,000 that's already been placed on that property. Now, if they were to accept a conventional loan, which is a different loan product, then if the conventional appraisal comes back higher, they can accept that one. But they cannot accept the same appraisal of the same type of loan, because that will be stamped against the property for 6 months. So please keep that into consideration when it pertains to appraisals, because some people are clearly unaware of those things. And I just want to make sure that you are completely aware, so that you have a full and clear understanding that the appraiser is the person who goes out there to give the true value of the home by factoring in the comparable market analysis, the condition of the property, the square footages, any upgrades or downgrades. All of those things are taken into consideration when getting the appraisal, which is the report of the value of the home and all the details inside of it, and all the comparable houses that we use to come up with the value of that particular home. So I'm going to come back with my final closeout, talking about love versus survival. All right, you all. I wasn't supposed to put that up there. I'm sorry. That was last week when I was talking about the credit and everything. So I'm going to briefly talk about love versus survival, because this has come up in a brief conversation, and I actually saw this on a YouTube channel. The question is, how were you raised? Because depending on how you were raised is going to determine what type of spouse that you actually want, or that you're going to actually deal with and have a good relationship with. Many of us were raised on survival. Few of us were raised on love. Some of us were given love. So it really depends. I've seen, when I was looking at this recent YouTube clip, that it was broken down that many people who were raised off survival based everything solely on money. Money. That's why so many people out here saying, oh, you got to earn a certain amount to be with me, or I'm only want a person who earns this a certain amount. That's why some guys can be in a relationship and they will want their spouse to contribute 50-50, because in their minds it's based off survival. That's why some women will meet a guy and he has to earn a certain amount, because some people were raised on survival. But what about raised on love? Those who were raised on love, they have a different mindset, because many of them don't care. That's why some of them who want a spouse, going back to the men, they want a woman who, takes care of home, takes care of them. Some women want a man who's going to love them unconditionally and respect them. I think people should really analyze and ask that question when they're out in this world dealing with people. How were you raised? And what do you really want? And what motivates you? You know, because does money motivate you or does love motivate you? Because nowadays it seems like money motivates everyone to do all types of stuff out here. That seems to be the prime motivation for everything and everyone. I just think it's kind of when you step back, when you step outside yourself and you analyze and you look at other people, you can learn a lot. Sometimes you don't even have to go through things because we're all human. People tell you whatever you need to know. Everything that you're doing, most of the time, has been done before. You know, I mean, there's sometimes in some situations where they're trailblazers, but most things have been done before by someone else or very similar. But love versus survival or survival versus love, however you want to say it. How were you raised? Like I said, many people were raised off survival. Very few people that I know were raised off love. But what are you looking for out of life? Are you looking just to survive or are you looking to thrive? Because many who were raised off survival going to find that it's going to be hard for some people to love them when all they want to do is survive. And in order to thrive, you have to and you have to bring love into the equation. So I just say that think about how you were raised because some of us don't even think about that. You don't even think about it. Like, damn, was I raised off love or survival? Or did I have both? Or did I have more love than survival? Or did I have more survival? Because, like I said, us, meaning us, many of us were raised off survival. Few of us were raised off love. But what is it that motivates you? What do you really want? What do you really need? That will determine a lot of what goes on in your life and what goes on in your relationship. I just wanted to point that out so some people can really take a look at themselves and take a look at how they treat people and how they are being treated themselves, because that will answer a lot of questions for you all. So I just wanted to share that real quick. Let me go back to my recap. I'll be back in 1 second. All right, people. Let me do my recap. My recap is on the latest market updates. I was giving you all I was giving some key points for sellers and buyers. Basically, with buyers, understand that houses out here are very negotiable. You can get a great deal, less competition, get a lot of incentives if you move. Waiting tomorrow for what you can do today normally ends up for a disappointing tomorrow in many ways. And sellers, pricing right is the key to you getting that buyer. Overpricing is going to make your listing stale like bread. It's going to be stale. And then when it pertains to appraisers and an appraisal, the appraiser is the one who goes up there to give us that's hired by the lenders in most cases. You can order it separately, but in most cases hired by the lender to go out there to get the true value of the property, making sure that the house is worth it, at least what the offer of is that has been made on a house. And the appraisal is actually the report of what the appraiser went out there to assess. And then also dealing with love versus survival. Many people really need to think about that because many of us were raised on one or both. I didn't mean to hit that, but as always, I appreciate you joining me each and every Friday at 12 noon for joining me with Real Estate, Real Life, Real Talk, and Real Life. Please follow me on all my social media platforms. I need to get on TikTok, but I need 1,000 followers, and I think I'm at 500 or something on there. So please follow me on all my social media platforms, and hopefully you all gained some knowledge today because I tried to educate you all in every way so you can have a clear understanding what it is when it pertains to real estate, and also a little tidbit on what's going on with my opinion, my perspective on life. Please also check out my website, DamonTheAgent.com. And if you have any questions, please hit me up. I'm always available. I appreciate you all. You all have a great weekend. And thank you again for checking out my podcast.